Shalsheles, let's say by Lot, when the Malochim had taken Lot out of Sodom. Now, why did Lot go to Sodom initially? I mean, here he was taken captive by the four kings. Avram saves him miraculously, defeats the four mightiest powers, and the man goes right back into the cauldron. He's going back there. And at the end of the day, Sodom is about to be destroyed. In the merit of Avram, Hashem sends an angel to save him. But why did he go back there? Lot, as the Torah originally tells us, why did Lot break with his uncle initially? Because Lot had tremendous wealth after they came back from Egypt, and the land could not carry both of them in terms of pasture lands. He went to Sodom, plus Sodom had another level of representation. In terms of, it was the sexual haven of the world. As we see at the end of the day, he committed incest with his own daughters. Even though he was drunk the first night, the second night, he was aware of what happened, and yet he put himself in the same situation to allow himself to cohabit with his second daughter. That was Lot. So if Lot, he lived and breathed power, material, when he was told, we're leaving because everything's about to be destroyed. That means it was a rude awakening at that moment. Here, the basis for his addiction and his whole life that he was consumed by this, all of it, he says, we got to leave. That's what the angel said to Lot. Vayismama. He was like rooted to his location. He couldn't move. Because now, all of a sudden, he realizes whatever his life's investment was, it's gone. It's over. The angel had to wrench him out of there, literally. Moshe Rabbeinu initially, logically speaking, should have been the Kohen Gadol. His family should have been the Kohanim. There was no Jew as perfect as Moshe Rabbeinu. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu forfeited the Kuna because he overarched his characteristic of humility, which was considered disrespect. Moshe Rabbeinu was engaged in a dialogue with Hashem for 7 days. They should go to Egypt to be the Goel, to be the Redeemer. And he asked many questions. And the dialogue went on for 7 days, and Hashem answered every one of his questions. After the seventh day, on the seventh day, when he answered everything, he says, but why don't you send the one who normally represents you as your spokesman, meaning Aaron? Hashem says, Aaron, your brother who's the Levi, will no longer be a Levi. He will be the Kohen, and you're going to remain a Levi. Meaning, at this moment, you forfeited the Kuna. Because it's considered disrespect. After I've answered everything, there's no place for humility any longer. It's clear you're the one. So how do you ask that question? The question being a disrespect, therefore you forfeit the Kuna. But Moshe officiated for how many days? 7 days. Moshe officiated as if he was a Kohen. On the 8th day, Aaron and his children were installed as what? As Kohanim. To begin officiating. That was fixed forever. Moshe will no longer be the Kohen. When we read last week, he anointed Moshe, Aaron, and his children. It says, Vayishchot. He slaughtered the animal. And they had to put blood on the thumb of Aaron and the thumbs of his sons. And the Shemen Amishcha, he anointed them. That means it was fixed forever. Aaron's children are the Kohanim. He will not be the Kohen. But it wasn't there yet. Until the 8th day when he installed them officially to officiate, when Moshe was no longer so-called the presiding Kohen, it was fixed forever. That's Vahi B'Yom HaShmini. That was on the 8th day. So he says, so the Baal Turim says something interesting over here. He says, Hashmini Korah Moshe, so Vahi B'Yom HaShmini Korah Moshe LaAaron uLevanav L'Ziknei Yisrael. On the 8th day, Moshe called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Yisrael. So the Baal Turim says, Oma Moshe, Lefi Shesiravti Zayin Yomim B'Sneh. Because I was in transient for 7 days at the burning bush, Lo Zachisi L'Shamish Elazayim. Therefore, only merited to officiate for 7 days. Because when did he go off the cliff? At the end of the 7th day. So for 7 days, he was still in the running, so to say. He was still qualified to be the Kohen. So for 7 days, Moshe officiated. On the 8th day, this is when he forfeited it. Now it's time for Aaron and his children to take over. Therefore, Vahi b'yom hashmini was on the 8th day, when Moshe understood, I was the only one to officiate 7 days, because 7 days I didn't yet forfeit the kuna. At the end of the 7th day, now the 8th day comes, now Moshe calls Aaron and his children, Ziknei Yisrael, to publicly install them to be the Kohanim. Okay? So Rashi himself explains, Vayi b'yom hashmini, name of the Midrash, L'miluim hu Rosh Chodesh Nisan Shukam HaMishkan Bo b'yom. It's the day the Mishkan was actually took on a permanent status. V'notal Ezer HaToros Hashus. Okay, Ziknei Yisrael. Why did he call the elders? Lashmiyom shal pi adibur Aaron nichnas. That based on divine dictate, Aaron is entering to officiate as Kohen. Umeshamish b'kuna gedola. And he will officiate as the Kohen Gadol. V'lo yomru me'ilav nichnas. And no one said that he actually took the mantle himself, but rather he was given the mantle. And who will be the ones to attest to this? The leadership of Klal Yisrael, which are the Ziknei Yisrael. Therefore, this calling and installation in an official capacity, the Ziknei Yisrael had to be there. In last week's reading, we read that he gathered Klal Yisrael Pesach Ol HaMoed. When he anointed Aaron and his children, he gathered Klal Yisrael Pesach Ol HaMoed. So Rashi over there says, how could all the Jews be contained within the entrance to Ol Moed? So Rashi says over there, that was one of the miracles of Mu'at Machzikas HaMeruba, that a small location was able to have an unlimited capacity. That all Klal Yisrael were able to fit within that very limited. The Mishkan itself was small enough, but this is Pesach. Pesach Ol HaMoed, this was the entrance to the Ol Moed, to the communion tent. Again, what was the reason? That Rashi says over there that no one should say that Aaron and his children did it on their own. They actually seized the mantle of Kuna, but rather they were given to it by Hashem. And what's proof in the pudding? That the miracle that all Klal Yisrael were able to be contained in this small location, it's clear this is God's will, that they should be the Kohanim. Okay? But I just want to mention this, very interesting. We had mentioned that an ordinary Kohen is not permitted to contaminate to the dead, only to the 7 closest relatives. The Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is not even permitted to contaminate even to his 7 closest relatives. And we'd explained when we explained this, that who is the Kohen Gadol? First of all, what is the Mishkan? The Mishkan is the first time God, on a semi-permanent level, returned to the terrestrial level, which was the original intent of creation, that he should be associated with man, not to be on the celestial angel level with angels. And therefore, the Gemara says in Megillah, that the joy Hashem had on the 8th day was the equivalent of the day that God created the world. That initial intention was that the Shekhinah should be on the terrestrial level. When Hashem came on the terrestrial level, it was Adam was Kodem Achid. That was pre-sin. It was only after Adam ate of the Eitz Hadas, only then was he disenfranchised and Hashem removed himself from the terrestrial level. This is the first time coming back to terrestrial level to be associated with Osli Milu Shechanti B'tocham, to have a relationship with Klal Yisrael. The Shekhinah now dwells in the midst of Klal Yisrael, but who is the representation of Adam? The Kohen Gadol is Adam. Just as Adam, when he was created, it was pre-sin, the concept, the whole reality of death was not in place. It was only as a result of eating the Eitz Hadas. The Kohen Gadol, representing Adam Korm Achet, he himself is not permitted to contaminate to the dead, because he's the person who has no relevance to death, to that level of contamination. Okay? Therefore, Aaron, V'yibi Yom HaShmini, on the 8th day, they were installed. Again, this is the first time, again, as I said, this was pre-sin of Adam, and therefore Hashem's joy was the equivalent when he created Adam and he had that relation with Adam for that reason. And that's why the Kohen Gadol, representing Adam Kodem Achet, is not permitted to contaminate to the dead, only in one instance, if it's a question of Mes Mitzvah. If he comes upon a Jewish corpse, which is unattended to, which is a disgrace to the person who died, only then is that an overriding factor, and that supersede his status as Kohen Gadol, he's obligated to contaminate to that person. But under normal circumstances, he's not permitted. He's the only person permitted to go into Kodesh Kadoshim, in the Holy of Holies, once a year on Yom Kippur. At those particular, why? Again, because at that level, he's associated with the Shekhinah at the most intimate level. As Adam Kodem Achet had that relationship with the Shekhinah, because he was sin-free at that point, he had no relevance to the evil of the Eitz Hadas. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is that level of representation on the ultimate level. He goes to the Holy of Holies with the location of the Shekhinah for that reason. Okay.
I know we have to break shortly, but